Talkin' Rock Radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Welcome, everyone, to Talkin' Rock Radio. This is a very special one for me as it marks our 100th episode since starting this podcast almost 4 years ago. I knew I wanted this show to be really special and memorable one, so here we go. My guest today is a founding member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame group Buffalo Springfield. That group also transitioned into Poco, and that was a group of great country rockers that influenced the incarnation of the Byrds and the Eagles. Welcome one of my very first rock heroes, Richie Furay from Sugarloaf Mountain, Colorado.
Put on my blue suede shoes and I boarded the plane. Touchdown in the land of the Delta Blues in the middle of the pouring rain. W.C. Handy, won't you look down over me? Yeah, I got a first class ticket, but I'm blue as a boy can be. Then I'm walking in Memphis, walking with my feet 10 feet off a bill. Walking in Memphis, but do I really feel the way I feel? I saw the ghost of Elvis on Union Avenue, followed him up to the gates of Graceland, then I watched him walk right through. Now security, they did not see him, they just hovered around his tomb. But there's a pretty little thing waiting for the king down in the jungle room. When I was walking in Memphis, walking with my feet 10 feet off the field. Walking in Memphis, do I really feel the way I feel? They got catfish on the table, they got gospel in the air. Reverend Green, be glad to see you when you haven't gotta pray. But boy, you got a prayer in Memphis. Now Muriel plays piano every Friday at the Hollywood, and they brought me down to see her, and they asked me if I would do a little number, and I sang with all my might. She said, tell me, are you a Christian child? I said, ma'am, you got that right. Then I was walking in Memphis, walking with my feet 10 feet off the field. Walking in Memphis, but do I really feel the way I feel? Walking in Memphis, walking with my feet 10 feet off the field. Walking in Memphis, but do I really feel the way I feel? Put on my blue suede shoes and I boarded the plane.
Hi, Richie. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, Rick, it's going good today, man. I'll tell you, I'm just sitting back here relaxing and looking forward to the conversation with you.
Well, I so appreciate you doing this. And man, of course, this is my 100th episode, and I wanted to do something special, and I can't think of anybody more special than Richie Furay. Man, you're one of my heroes.
Oh man, I'm very humbled by that, Rick. Thank you so much. Golly, man, it touches my heart.
I kicked the show off with Walking in Memphis. I want to know what was the inspiration for you picking that song. I think you did it, what, a couple of years ago?
Yeah, we did. Well, the whole project, was like Val Gray's idea. He's the guy that produced the record, and he came to me at a concert that I did out in California. I mean, we hadn't recorded together. I've known Val since Buffalo Springfield days, but we hadn't recorded together since 1979 when he recorded "I Still Have Dreams." And he said, "Hey, you want to make another record?" And I said, "Of course, man. I mean, who wouldn't want to record with a producer of the year?" And Val's got a great ear, man, for another old timer like me, man. He's got a great ear. And I said, "Well, what you got in mind?" And he said, "Well, let's do some country hits." And I was kind of wondering how far back he wanted to go with that, because I wouldn't know where to get started maybe on some of that. But he said, "You make a list and I'll make a list, and we'll see where we go from there." The interesting thing, Rick, was the very first song that I had on my list was the very first song that he had on his list. Now, it wasn't the song you're talking about, but the song was a song by John Barry called "Your Love Amazes Me," which is just a fantastic song. And ever since I heard that song, I wanted to record it, and Val obviously gave me the opportunity. And one of the songs that I wanted to do was "Walking in Memphis." It wasn't necessarily a country hit, but it certainly had that kind of a, I don't know. It just had something that both of us related to, and we said, "Hey, it'll work on this particular record." I loved Mark Cohen's version, and I just loved the song. I thought it told a great story, and I wanted to do it. And with this whole album, I really took a chance because all of these were hits. I mean, most of the songs on In the Country that you're referring to right now were hit songs. And so, I mean, for me to actually try to cover these songs or to do my own version of them, it was a challenge because I wanted to go in and not just redo the song, but to give them my feel, my touch, and to make them my own, basically, in the end. And I think we did a pretty good job on Walking in Memphis.
You did, man. And I tell you, it was so great seeing Dan Dugmore there playing with you. He's
Oh, Dan is one of my best friends. He's a great, great musician and a great friend. He's played on every one of my records since 1997 that I've recorded all of my studio stuff in Nashville.
well, he kind of moved into the slot whenever Rusty Young passed away, right? You kind of started working with him a lot more. And
Well, actually, no. I mean, I started working with Dan in 1997.
oh,
I started doing most of my in studio recordings, my solo work in Nashville, and put the same band together. And Dan was, except for the very first one that I did, Dan wasn't there. But after that, Dan was on every single project that I've done. Fact is, Dan and I just talked. He's working on a song right now with me that I'm doing for my documentary that's in the process of being finished after COVID, man. It's been, the brakes were put on and everything else, but Dan's really contributed quite a bit to the music that I have for that. So Dan's a great friend, great musician, and love him dearly.
I've been talking to a lot of people in Nashville lately. It just so happens that they live there, but, like your buddy Jim Messina, of course, and
Mhm.
and we got guys from the Box Tops. We've got, so many of my friends live there, and it's an amazing city. It looks like Nashville is going to become the new Austin, Texas. They're just going crazy over there.
I know it's definitely becoming a music capital of the world. I'm not real fond of the town now. It seems it's just grown and exploded so much, that it's got a little different feel than it did back in the early days when I would move in and out of there. But yeah, there's a lot of people. I just saw Jimmy a couple weeks ago. He called and asked me to come out and sing a couple songs with him. He was here in Denver, so that was a real special treat.
I know you did. In fact, my guitar player hooked up with Jim at the Boot Barn, and
Oh, down in the Springs.
yeah, down in Colorado Springs, and so he was all excited about that. And Jim and I had talked about my Danny, Danny Evans, and it was a great thing that he got to be able to be with him afterwards at the Q&A and everything. But anyway, I was going to ask you regarding your session players in Nashville on that Walking in Memphis. Are you pretty much using the same players all the time, same drummer now, same backup vocalists on your album stuff, or were they just ones you pulled together for that session?
Those were musicians that pretty much Val decided these are the guys I want to record with me. And so we had Dan and we had Chris Lusinger also playing guitar that have been on all of my music, but everybody else, and they were great. We would have reached out probably to Michael Rhodes, but Michael was on the road at the time before he passed away with, I think, Joe Bonamassa, I think that's how you pronounce his name, and couldn't do it. And I was so thrilled to have Glenn Worf. Man, what a great guy, great musician. And he contributed so much. He just had a great feel. And I loved it when, these guys, man, they didn't just come in and do the record and say, okay, next. They wanted to contribute. These guys are professionals, So, Glenn would say, hey, I know this is above my pay grade here, but what if we try this on this particular song? And those guys were all great. Victor Andrizio was great on drums. And of course, Tom Bukovic, my goodness, what a guitar player that guy is too, man. And what a great, all of the guys were so just wonderful guys. Steve Nathan, all the guys that played on the record. I'd only met Dan and Chris. So the rest of the guys were all brand new to me, but Val said, hey, these are the guys that I want to be on the record. So let's go from there.
I tell you, Victor, man, he was like listening to a click track, man. He was just, he's just right on, man. Just really great, like a clock.
He's got great time. And, Rick, I've done this only twice in my career where I have sung live to the tracks as they're going down to where we were able to use and keep and do it that way. I didn't have to go in and overdub except on two songs that we ended up doing. One of them was mine, Picking Up the Pieces, which was a bonus track, which I'll never understand what that was all about. They should have put that one and the one that my daughter sang with me, the George Strait, I Crossed My Heart. They should have put that on the CD rather than just say, hey, it's a bonus track, and I can understand on vinyl because there's a certain amount of time, that maybe, you lose some of the volume on it, but I don't know. But everything was done live. Now, some of it needed to be tweaked, but what was there was the feel.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Val was just great at really getting my voice to a place where I love the record, man. I feel like BMG let it go. I really am disappointed in what they did, but that's been the story of my career.
I loved your animation. You were so into the song. You're just, it just had a great feel. It really did. And I have to say to you, man, you are still singing so darn good. You've done a great job keeping your voice and the chops really good through all these years. That's so nice.
Well, it's been the Lord. It's been His grace, because I can go out there and play live now, and I'm one and done sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the songs that I've written and that I play, they're not the easiest songs to sing. And for a guy, that's 80 years old, man, it gets to be a little tough.
I know. I hear you, man.
But thanks, man. I appreciate that because when it's there, it's like I feel real good about it. But I never did learn to sing right. I don't sing from my diaphragm. I sing from my throat. And I tried to take lessons when I moved to Colorado, and you know what, man, I couldn't get it to work. So I just go back and I just sang, from the way that I feel. And it's all just, it's what I do. And so sometimes it stays around and sometimes I have to wait a day or two before it comes back.
Hey, man, if it works, just keep doing it. That's all I'll say, Okay, man, this is what I want to do. Let's go to 1965, Laurel Canyon. And let's talk, well, first of all, you were up there with so much musical energy. You had Mama Cass, Joni Mitchell, oh, man, Frank Zappa, Carole King, Jim Morrison, James Taylor, Jackson Brown. I could go on forever. But you were up there with so much synergy and so much great music talent. I want you to talk about, and for what it's worth, a group called Buffalo Springfield. Let's talk a little bit about the who's who of that group and some of your most fond memories of being in Laurel Canyon amongst all that great talent.
Well, when we got started out there, Stephen Stills and I had been friends back in New York in the Go-Go Singers, a group of 9, like the New Christie Minstrels. It was that type of a group. But Stephen had come out to California, and Graham Parsons actually brought me the Byrds' first record. I was working up at Pratt & Whitney Aircraft in Connecticut, handing out tools in the tool crib after the Go-Go Singers broke up, and Graham brought this record up and said, "You got to hear this record, man. This is great music." And boy, when I heard that, I said, I got to get a hold of Stephen, So I tracked him down. It took a little while because I sent a letter off to his dad, and it came back not enough postage. So I had to send the thing back to find out where Stephen was in California. But when I finally got a hold of Steve, he said, "Hey, come on out to California. I got a band together. All I need is another singer, and we'll be ready to go." And I said, "Let me take care of my business, and I'm on my way." And I got out to California, and the band, there was no band. It was me and Steve. And I thought, oh, boy, here we go again. But I had met Neil along the way, and he'd met Neil along the way, and everybody, there's that famous story on Sunset Boulevard where we connected in a traffic jam, and Neil had Bruce Palmer with him, and we got stuck in a traffic jam during the day right in front of a restaurant called Ben Frank's, and we just stopped, and that was the beginning of Buffalo Springfield right there. Neil had taught me. Nowadays Clancy can't even sing. When I met him back in New York, and I taught it to Stephen. And so when we all got back to Stephen's little apartment, or the one that we were staying in, and played it for Neil, I'm in, and he's part of and so he and Bruce, because they were actually leaving town. They had been in Los Angeles. They had been in Los Angeles for probably, I don't know, maybe 2-3 weeks. And this was well before the days of cell phones and computers and, everybody knowing how to get in touch with one another. And they had looked for Steve, and they couldn't find him, man. And so they were on their way to the 405 to go to San Francisco. And Here we were, man, stopped in traffic. Go figure, man. Come on, that stuff doesn't happen, but it happened then. And anyway, so we started the band then, and all we needed was a drummer, and our friends in the Byrds, Chris Hillman and David Crosby, they recommended we try out Dewey Martin. And he was playing with the Dillards right now, who were managed by the same people as the Byrds, Eddie Tickner and Jim Dixon. And Dewey said, "Hey, the only thing is, man, I got to sing. Can I sing? I sound like Wilson Pickett. Can I do one of those?" We said, "Come on, man, let's see how it works." And so that was the original band right there: Bruce Palmer, Dewey Martin, Stephen, Neil, and myself. And it lasted for 2 years. It was a very quick turnaround. We found ourselves in a lot of, there was a lot of trouble going on. Bruce couldn't maintain, he was having a lot of trouble with drugs and stuff, and he couldn't maintain. And Neil couldn't decide whether actually after we got started, if he wanted to be a solo artist or be a part of the band. And so in 2 years, there were 9 people in and out of the band, and Jimmy Messina happened to be the last bass player that we had. But it was fun. I really feel like, we were just having a great time. We were the house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go for about 6 weeks, and the Doors played with us there with Jim Morrison and the guys. Love, that was another band that was playing. The Leaves, the Grassroots, a bunch of different bands. When we got started there, nobody knew who we were. But by the end of that 6 weeks period, man, they were lined up around the block to see us. It was pretty amazing. It was fun.
It's kind of neat hearing you mention those groups, because they were some of the same groups that that I was really loving their music, especially Grassroots, because I've done a show with Dennis Provisor already, you know, a year or so ago. And what a neat guy he was, or still is. He's a great musician. Thinking about 1966 on Sunset, things were really kicking off for you guys. The good things were going on, and I've got to tell you, another one of my rock heroes from El Paso was Bobby Fuller. Now that was
wow.
In 1966, that was when Bobby met his demise, unfortunately, out there in Hollywood. I was going to ask you, do you remember that, and were you friends with him?
No, I never met him, but I'm familiar with his music for sure.
Yeah, his guitar player right after that happened it happened in 66, but in 68, 69, Jim Reese from his band joined my band here in El Paso and played with us for 3 years, and just one of the most talented musicians ever that I ever worked with. You know, he's really, really great. Okay, I'm going to tell you an interesting fact here, Richie, that this is so cool. In 1968, you're playing a place in El Paso called Liberty Hall with the Buffalo Springfield. You and Nancy had just gotten married in 67. On that same stage in the same year, 1968, is when I met my future wife. And it was in 72 that we got married, but it was on that same stage. She was a go-go dancer, and I was playing in my band, and the guy that introduced us was Red Skelton's manager. He was directing the show, and it was really, really cool. But it took me a year to finally convince her to date me. You know, that was 68 when we met. 69, I'm at a club listening to a band called the Sojourners, and they did For What It's Worth so great. I always loved going and listening to them play that, and ironically, the guy that my wife was with that night, they weren't dating. They were just there listening to the band as well. Was Rick Stone, who was the road manager for the Bobby Fuller Four. But anyway, I saw my wife across the room there. In the date that I was with, I excused myself to go to the restroom, and I said, "I'll be back in a moment, please." So I walked back around where she couldn't see me, and I went over to Sharon, and I said, "Could I get your phone number?" And she gave it to me. A week later, we started dating.
Oh, boy.
And yeah, and then we got married in 72. So congratulations for your 57th anniversary. We just celebrated our 52nd. So.
Oh, man, congratulations to you. That's awesome, man.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you and I definitely belong to an elite club for sure, you know.
I'll tell you, and it hadn't been without a few rocky road along the way, you know.
Oh, yes.
We managed, you know.
I got to tell you, you know, it same here, you know. We never separated, but things were not always smooth riding, you know. I know, especially on the road, you know.
Gotta work it out, man, and we did.
Exactly. In 1968, that same year when Buffalo Springfield had disbanded, you and Jim, of course, transitioned into one of the greatest, you know, finest country rock bands there ever was, man, Poco. Why don't you talk a little bit about the members of that group and what all kind of happened from the beginning of it?
Well, you know, Jimmy and I, you know, he was the last bass player, and it was on a Beach Boy tour that we were doing that Jimmy and I really struck up a real close friendship. And you know, we kind of felt that things aren't going to be lasting very long here. You know, it's just, you could just get the sense that what Buffalo Springfield wasn't going to continue much longer. And so it was there that we just started kicking the idea around of, you know, doing a band that somehow or another would be a crossover from country to country to rock. Basically, as I look back on it now, it was nothing new. I mean, because there was a lot of country rock going on years ago, you know, with Buddy Holly and with Gene Vincent and Carl Perkins and those kind of guys, man. But it was something that would be new for that era, taking the California rock sound, you know, and making it country. And so when Buffalo Springfield disbanded, I said I would always be in the band as long as Steven was there. You know, because I really believe that Buffalo Springfield was Steven's band. I mean, he was the heart and soul of the band. People might look at it differently today because of the success that Neil's had, and well deserved. But the heart and soul for me of Buffalo Springfield was Steven. And I basically, you know, said as long as he's there, you know, I'm there. And when he decided to go, that's when Jimmy and I, you know, we started to put our heads together and say, hey, let's go to work on this. And one of the songs that was on the Last Time Around album was Kind Woman, that I had written, you know, my relationship with Nancy.
Got a good reason for loving you. It's an old-fashioned sign. I kinda get to feeling like you know when fell in love the first time. Kind woman, won't you love me tonight? I see the look in your eyes.
And we wanted to get a steel guitar player on the band, on the song, and didn't know really who to go to or where to go. But there was a road manager that worked for Poco that said, hey, I know this guy back in Denver, and he's the greatest steel guitar player there is, you know. So sight unseen, unheard, all of it, you know. We invited him out, man, to play on the record. And, you know, when he didn't even have his own guitar when I guess it didn't make it. I had forgotten that, but I guess it didn't make it. He had to borrow a guitar from Steven, from what I understand. And he played, you know, he played the part, and Jimmy and I just kind of looked at each other and said, this will work. Let's ask him. And so we asked him if he wanted to join the band, and Rusty joined right in and said, yeah. And then we, you know, needing a drummer and a bass player. Rusty said, you know, I'm playing with a great drummer back in Denver in Benzie Creek, and he's a great singer as well. He's a high harmony singer, and maybe we should audition and try him. And so there's how George Grantham got in the band, and George was a sweetheart, and he was right on board. Then we needed a bass player, and there were a couple of girls that knew some of these bands that were local in Los Angeles. And one of them was a group called The Poor that Randy Meisner was a part of. And I can't remember what group Timothy was in at that particular time in LA. But my recollection is that we auditioned both Timothy and Randy on the same day. Now, you know, hey, that was 50 some odd years ago, and stories can, you know, you can remember things differently. That's how I remember it. And, you know, Randy obviously ended up, you know, being the guy that was given the first opportunity to play with us. And when he left, then, we went right after Timothy because both of them, were just superb. I remember going through a box of memorabilia, and I found this letter that Timothy wrote me. And he said, "Hey, thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to audition. It was a lot of fun. I love your music, and I know you guys are going to make the right choice, and this and that and the other, and just thank you very much for allowing me the privilege of auditioning." And I framed the thing and sent it off to him. It's probably been 10 years ago now that I came across that, but. So, I mean, basically, that's how the band all got started. Jimmy and I just having the idea, and then, Rusty bringing George in, and then auditioning Randy and Timothy. And it was just exactly what we needed because Rusty had a rock and roll feel to what he was doing, and my opinion today. Looking back on it, yes, it was California country rock, and we were definitely the pioneers. And I do believe that Poco gets dissed a little bit on the contribution that we made, and who knows why? It must be me. I must be the figure in there that I don't know. Anyway, Rusty. I believe he is really what set. We could have been any California rock and roll band with 3 guitars, but the steel guitar and the way that he played that steel guitar and the innovation that he had on what he did, I mean, who's thinking about running a steel guitar through a Leslie amp and make it sound like an organ, and all. So he really set us apart and completed the circle of what we wanted to do. And great musician, great talented guy.
One of the iconic and historic clubs in LA, of course, the Troubadour, where many great entertainers cut their teeth, including Linda and so many others. Why don't you share a little bit about some of the incredible times that Poco had? I know there's got to be a big takeaway for you with that group at the Troubadour. Talk about that a little bit, man.
Well, the Troubadour, our road manager and manager, Dickie Davis, he had a connection with Doug Weston there. And, we needed a place. We had to move out of my home on 2300 Laurel Canyon Boulevard to rehearse, And so it became a swap kind of, Doug Weston let us rehearse there to play at night. I don't remember making any money for the shows, but we became the house band, at the Troubadour. And again, so many people were coming, man, and people that, I had no idea that so many people would come to hear what we were doing. We were creating a new sound, and the Troubadour was the place at the time, for people to come and to experiment. And we really were cutting our teeth right there at the Troubadour. It was a fun place to play. Amazingly, I went back. The Troubadour, oh golly, it's been about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years now, maybe even longer than that. I can't remember, man, how the time flies. But I re-recorded the Deliverin' record that Poco made back in New York and Boston years and years ago, and we re-recorded all of it at the Troubadour. And the thing that got me, man, was how small the club really was. It was packed that night because they didn't have chairs. When we re-recorded this thing, they didn't have the little tables and chairs and everything, because it was a folk club basically when we were getting started, and all. But it was sure fun to be able to play there. I remember one incident that really sticks out on the Troubadour. We were playing, and Steve Martin was our opening act.
Oh wow!
And we were invited to play the Denver Pop Festival. And we were already booked in the Troubadour, so we said, how in the world are we going to make this work? And whoever was working with us at the time as manager, we were able to fly out on a Learjet, basically, at the time. Boy, we were living the big time. Play the show early in the day, and then fly back. Well, of course, there were things that interrupted us, and it got a little bit later than we would have liked. And Steve was having to cover for us as we were late getting back to the Troubadour. And I think that's where he came up with the arrow in the head act, and because we walked in and he was doing that one too. Again, Rick, I don't know if we opened for him or he was opening for us, but I think it was that way, the other way around. He was opening for us at the time. But it was a crazy time, man. But we had fun there at the Troubadour.
Did you get to know John Beeland at all, Richie?
Beeland or Boylan? Is that
John Beeland? He played with Linda with Swamp Water.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious.
I've always kept a pretty low profile. That's why I moved to Colorado, man.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Talk about We Were the Dreamers, man. One of my favorites.
Well, that song was certainly a song that, and I don't spend a lot of time because I've written a song called When It All Began that kind of like talked about Poco. And this one here, I had a lot of the riffs on that record called Hand in Hand, I had forever. And I just couldn't find a song for them. And finally, I had that little riff that opens up, We Were the Dreamers. And I was talking to the guy that was managing me at the time. I said, man, I can't make this thing work. I don't know. I've had this laying around. I've been playing this lick for I don't know how many years. I can't make it work. And he said, well, why don't we get together with this guy over here and we'll play him the riff and you write the song together. So I went and I took a shower and I came back, man, had the song all written in my head right then. And it's just a song that reflects upon, the history of Poco. It was really the history of Poco. We were just some kids having fun. And, back in the day, Nashville certainly wasn't, they weren't very open-armed to receive us. The music that was, if you weren't a part of that scene, man, you weren't a part of, but as I said in the song, there are some folks that got it, and you're thinking of Waylon Jennings and people like that, that were playing, basically country rock at the time, and all. But that was just me reflecting upon, us getting started, the music that we offered to the world, here we are, man. We're just playing music that we feel and that we love, but there it is.
Dreamers, shooting high for the stars, making rock and roll music, playing country guitars. We blaze a trail for generations to come. Yeah, we were the dreamers, just some kids having fun. Some years, 1969, on that Troubadour stage, it just seemed like a time. Laurel Canyon and Sunset, that's where we'd call home. We made certain our music had a sound all its own. Yeah, we were the dreamers, we were the ones who claimed that day in the sun. Now it's just a shadow of days come and gone. We were the dreamers, pioneers pressing on.
From 73 to 75, you had a group called Souther-Hillman-Furay band. And I tell you what, I love the harmonies of this group, man. Talk about that group a little bit.
Well, that was a group that came together after I left Poco. I went to David Geffen, and we had just released "A Good Feeling to Know," and Rick, back in the day when that was released, you needed an AM hit record to keep your career really moving up out of where just to lift it up. And everybody thought that "Good Feeling to Know" was going to be the song that lifted Poco into a different level of commercial success. And the Eagles recorded a song right there at the same time called "Take It Easy." And I remember we were driving around. We used to play every SUNY back in New York State University at New York. We used to play them all. We're on our way to one, and on the radio, just listening, for our song, and all we kept hearing, man, was "Take It Easy." And I came home really kind of, disillusioned. And I called David Geffen up, and he was a good friend at the time, and really loved Poco. And I think we've got an interview from him on the documentary that's coming out too, man. So it's really going to be pretty cool. But he said, I said, I don't think it's going to make it, and I don't know. At that time, it became more. Now I have to support a family and this and that and the other, and and everything was just kind of laying there. And he said, well, I know Chris Hillman's looking for something to do, and so is J.D. Souther, a great songwriter, "Best of My Love" and all that, and maybe you guys could get together and put a band together. So it was pretty much David's idea to put the band together, Souther-Hillman-Furay, and we had great musicians. Al Perkins, you couldn't have asked for a greater musician than Al. And it was Chris's idea. And I told him, man, I don't want this guy in the band. I don't want this guy in the band at all. And Chris was kind of like, well, why? I mean, he's a great steel player. He's a great guitar player. He's a great banjo player. He's a great dobro player. What is it that you don't want him in? He had a little fish sticker on his guitar that said, "Jesus is Lord."
Oh, wow.
I don't want this guy in the band.
Oh, well, man.
Obviously, Chris won out, and Al got in the band and became a very, very, very dear friend of mine, led me to the Lord during the whole process. But, we had Paul Harris. Oh, man, one of the greatest field keyboard players, man. Paul was wonderful. And Jimmy Gordon. I mean, Jim at the time, he had 3 sets of drums going around L.A., all the sessions that he was doing. And
between him and Hal Blaine, right?
Yep, absolutely. And we had it was a great band, and for all practical purposes, probably, we should have, it should have been more successful, but things were happening in my life, man, that diverted me from sticking around, because Nancy and I were on the verge of divorce at that time. And after the first record, I basically, I made the second record. I don't even remember recording with the great Tommy Dowd. I don't even remember recording up here at Caribou Ranch, which is right now, it's about 8 miles from where I live. And at the time, it was only about 3 miles away, but my mind was just consumed with other things, and the separation with Nancy, and it was tragic and all. And so that's why, SHF, people can say that there were difficulties among the players. There wasn't difficulties, man. I was having personal problems in my life that I had to sort out, and figure, what do I really want out of life, and that's why I wrote in "I've Got a Reason," a song that in the very first solo record that I did. Music was my life and finally took everything. Ain't it funny how you got it all and not a thing? And boy, when I looked at that, man, it was like that was it. And I said, I can't do this, and it made people there were speculations that, well, Chris and Richie's just can't work. That's baloney, we still love each other to this day. Chris and I have done shows together, and JD's a little more active and haven't seen him as much, but man, I tell you what, he came in when we were doing In the Country and did a great interview, man, and it was like JD was, our friendship is alive, people are they just love to dig up dirt, man.
I think so, and we went through that with my very first show band out in LA in '73. It was such a nice group, 5-part harmony. Really, everybody was super talented, And then here's an issue between the keyboard player and his wife, and that basically is what broke up the band. And he made the decision of the wife. In about 40 years later, when he talked to me next time, he said, "I think I should have taken the band."
Well, I made the right decision.
Yeah, you did.
I said, you know what, I got a family here that I want to start and go with, and you know what, I wouldn't trade any of it today for any of the success that my friends have. I mean, they're household names. People. I'm just the guy in the middle that nobody actually knows about. But.
Talk about the Richie Furay band. What year did you form it? I know it's still going. What year did all that take place?
Well, basically, it all started around 76,
Okay.
when started with some guys that I met out at Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa, California. Tom Stipe and John Mailer, Jay Truax, and myself. We had a little 4-piece band, and that was the first record. And then it kind of evolved, to other people. One of my one of the guys that played bass for me after Jay was Billy Batstone, a great friend of mine and great songwriter. Fact is, he wrote the title song to "I Still Have Dreams." He wrote that song, and he was a driver for my truck, the equipment truck and all. And Billy ended up being a bass player in the band, just a great friend, great talented guy. And so it moved on and on and on until, basically I stopped. And, basically I said, you know what, probably, music isn't I can't do music anymore. So I was asking the Lord, what will you have me to do? And it started out as just, pastoring a church. We started a little home Bible study and all. And after a while, I started doing some things with another friend of mine, Greg Laurie, who pastors a church in California now. And I would go out and do music. And I thought music was really in my past, but all of a sudden I'm starting to do more music and put some other guys together. And I've had several different bands. I had a band that actually was the Crossroads Church of Denver, was another musical band that I played with. Good friend of mine, Kenny Weisberg, who was actually on the radio and a writer for the Boulder Daily Camera that moved to San Diego. He was a guy that really got me going back in music again, along with my partner at the time, Scott Sellen. And Kenny said, "Hey, listen, I'm promoting shows out here at Humphreys by the Bay, and I'd like to have you come out and do some concerts." And I said, "Kenny, I haven't done anything, man, in 10 years. He said, "Yeah, I know, man, that's okay. But you know what? I'll find the right show. You still got something to say, And so he said, "Let me go to work on finding you the right act, to open for, and we'll talk later." Well, he called me back and he said, "I got the act for you, to open up for." And he said, "It's Stephen Stills." And so we went out there, just my buddy, just Scott and myself. Scott was a guitar player, a piano player, a banjo player, and we worked together for quite a while. And so that became the beginning of an RFB, or a Richie Furay band, that actually lasted, almost 15 years or 20 years or so. His son started to play. My daughter joined the band, and Jesse Lynch, by the way, yeah.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And then, there came a time, when I just had to start something different, and COVID came along and everything just went kind of berserk, and there were some other issues that I had to really disband that band, and didn't know really what I was going to do. And there was an offer came in for me to come to California to do a house concert, because somebody had donated some money to the documentary. And if they donated a certain amount of money, I would come out and do a concert. Well, my daughter and my friend Dan Scarta, who I'm playing with now, that's the little trio, the acoustic trio that I have. We accepted and ended up going out there, but I almost didn't go out there, because it's like I had a friend call. It wasn't that I didn't go out, but it was a friend called and said, hey, there's a band that's out there. They want to back you up. They are so good. They want to back you up. And I said, no. I don't write 3-chord blues songs. I said, no, these guys are really good, Well, as it turned out, after COVID kind of settled down a little bit, that we did go out and do the house concert. And I accepted, and I said, okay, we'll let this band back us up on 6 songs. And so Dan and Jesse and I sang about 5 or 6 songs, and then we had this band come out. And I'll tell you what, we looked at each other like Jimmy and I did, looking at, when Rusty came and said, these guys are really good. And so, I take them on the road when I can as the new Richie Furay band. And then I also have my little trio with Dan, Scarta, and Jesse doing our more acoustic stuff. And, it's fun going both ways. I like going into places where we do the acoustic music and it's just kind of quiet and people can really hear the lyrics and the songs. And I actually, I know Jimmy does a question and answer after the show now. I actually do a question and answer during the show.
Oh, wow. Cool.
When we're doing I'll stop a song and say, but anybody got, ask me. And so I'll bring it in that way. And so it's kind of neat when we get a chance to just talk to the people. I mean, I'll meet and greet the people anyway, but I still like to okay, here we are, man. What are you thinking? What kind of questions do you have about, what's going on right now? So anyway, it all started way back when with just me and Scott Sellen doing a duo, adding his son and my daughter and a couple other people to where we got, this band that I'll play with. I'm going back to Jersey and the end of next month, I think, and playing at SOPAC and out on the island out there, taking the band back there. And then my daughter and Dan just play acoustic. We're going back to Connecticut actually at the end of this month, just doing the Falcon something music festival, a folk festival.
Well, jumping from the small combination that you're currently using a lot, I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum, and I really like watching you and Jesse doing On the Way Home with the Wild Honey Orchestra. Wow, what a big sound that was. Yeah,
and the Wild Honey Orchestra, that's where Val came to hear me that we did In the Country. That's where we hadn't touched bases forever, But that was so much fun having that Wild Honey Orchestra. That was a great concert. I mean, they did all except for 3 Buffalo Springfield songs, I think, or maybe 2. I don't know. The whole night was Buffalo Springfield. And hey, you know what? If Jesse wasn't working with me now, I wouldn't be doing this. I can almost tell you and guarantee you that. I mean, it just makes it more fun.
When the dream came, I held my breath with my eyes closed. I went insane like a smoking day when the wind blows. Now I won't be back till later on, if I do come back at all. But you know me, and I miss you now. Ooh.
Richie Furay. Richie Furay. Jessica Furay. Scott Sullivan.
Just to go out with my daughter, and she sings so well, and we're trying to add. I mean, she has a record of her own, which I think is really it's fantastic. People can get it on my website. I just love singing with her, and she likes singing with me, and we're really blessed that her husband, she has 4 daughters of her own.
Wow, that's great.
And so for her to be able to go out and do the shows when we do, it's really great just to have her along.
In 1986, well, first of all, let me back up here. I found a video of you guys, and it's supposed to be the only recorded rehearsal of Buffalo Springfield ever, and it was in 1986, 18 years after you guys broke up, and it was at Stephen Still's home. And I tell you, when I saw that video, I so much enjoyed it, because watching the chemistry going on between you and Neil, and of course they're still sitting over there just really killing it. It was really cool watching you guys work out the guitar part on that song. I mean, wow, really, really cool.
It was fun. That actually time, though, it turned out to be a train wreck. The first time we got together, it was when they filmed it, and I think that's what you're referring to, because we got together 2 other times after that, and basically what was happening was people's minds weren't really focused on that, even though it was a suggestion that we try and do it. I mean, we had Bruce and Dewey there as well, and all, but Neil was still really focused on his solo career, and Stephen had a career that was going on. I was really focused on the church that I was pastoring at the time, and it became a train wreck. At the end of the day, it just didn't happen. Quite different from what happened just about 12 years ago when we had the reunion, which it was just spectacular. I mean, we didn't have Bruce or Dewey. We had Rick Rosas, who still isn't with us today, but also Joe Vitale. And it was like glove. It was like hand in glove. I mean, it just went so smoothly, and that was a lot of fun. In fact, we were supposed to do a lot of shows, and of course, as it turns out, one of the guys just decided we're done here after Bonnaroo, and that was it.
In 1997, Buffalo Springfield was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Talk about that night. How special that must have been.
Well, it was quite an honor to be recognized, and then I also look at that as I think Buffalo Springfield was also a pet group of Jan Wiener, the guy, the head of Rolling Stone and all magazine, and all, and I feel like it's a lot of his people that are actually recognized or whatever. And I feel, I have mixed feelings about, yes, it's an honor to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I believe Buffalo Springfield with the influence and with Stephen and going on to such a great career, Crosby, Stills and Nash, and then Neil over here, going on to be an iconic musician, very well deserved. And I think Buffalo Springfield, certainly deserved to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I also believe another band that I was in deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I believe that it was not a pet little group of Jan Wiener or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think, and that's one of the reasons why. I mean, come on, man. Poco was a group that, man, opened up the door for the biggest band in American history, I think. Certainly from our standpoint, from the Eagles, for crying out loud. I mean, doesn't that mean anything? Do you have to have hit records, or can you influence? Somebody's got to dig up the fallow ground, man, and make it pave the way. And I mean, even Glenn and Don have both said, along with Timothy, on various shows, that, hey, if it wasn't for, and they didn't say necessarily Buffalo Springfield, but they said Poco, which, I just believe that Poco really deserves that place in there. But, it's just it's another thing that I think, well, as I look at it, it's somebody's pet little project.
Yeah, and I've heard that being stated before, that if it hadn't been for you guys, the Eagles would not have been born. So I think there's a lot of truth to that, for sure.
And I don't know about that. I know Glenn Fry sat on my living room floor in Laurel Canyon when I was rehearsing Poco before we ever stepped on the stage at the Troubadour. So Glenn knew, he came over and he listened, and boy, I wish he would have told me some of the things along the way that he learned, so I could have put it into practice with Poco. But he was there, and that's the kind of situation that was going on in Los Angeles at the time. There were a lot of friends. I didn't look at it as competition, and looked at it as just, hey man, these are friends and they're making music and playing music and having a good time, and so are we, and all. But I think certainly the influence that we had on contemporary rock and roll music of when we got it all started, when it all began back in '69, I think that deserves something, because we did influence a lot of people. Now, that's not to take away from the Burrito Brothers, but you talk to Chris, man. Chris will tell you we weren't a country rock band. We were a country band. We played every country dive, that there was, and we played from that aspect, where Poco is really, we were focused on wanting to cross the music, the country music that Jimmy and I really liked, to what we were creating ourselves at the time.
You mentioned the Burrito Brothers. John Beelan was one of the members of the Burrito Brothers, okay, with Gibb. Okay, so that's the John Beelan that I was talking about.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
So I must have met him.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. In 2015, of course, Poco was inducted into the Colorado Music Hall of Fame, so that was a great achievement in itself. 2018, Poco celebrated its 50th reunion at the Troubadour, and what a great concert. You had talked about you didn't realize how small that place was, but boy, what a beautiful video to watch. I mean, first of all, everybody was so into it. The crowd was just loving it. And you guys, man, I was going to ask you, how long did it take to prep for that show? Because the harmonies, I mean, you and Timothy, man, or I loved him putting his head over on your shoulder, and it was so magical, man. It was a great concert. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, it was magical, and again, that would have never happened apart from my manager David Stone, who has since passed away just a few months ago. I'm devastated over that. David picked up my career as just a friend. I mean, we never had a contract, we never had anything, but he's the reason that we made that record, that Troubadour project. He's the reason that the documentary is still, a viable piece of product that's going to be coming out. And I miss him, but it was like, God, you really think you can go and recreate this record and all? And then when I look back on it, well, yeah, I mean, we were at that time, the group that I had going with him, we were playing all but 3 of the songs already in our set. So I just had to learn 3 songs over again, consequently so long. And I'm trying to think of, it was one other, I can't remember what they are now, but it was that one. And a couple other ones. And so, from our standpoint, it didn't take much preparation.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. When I need good loving, I always come home to you. You free my mind. Time of the
And it was just a lot of fun to see, the people that were there, like you said, man. I mean, it was that place was packed out. You couldn't have got another person in there, and everybody was having a good time. We played 2 full sets. We played a set of music, obviously, that didn't have anything to do with Delivering, but then we played the whole album of Delivering again.
And the harmonies, man, they were so good.
Yeah. Well, that really had a lot to do with, the band that I was with at the time, and with my daughter, Jessie. We've been playing for a while. I mean, it wasn't like we just picked this up, but then you come and you add Timothy in, and we figured out, what key he wants to sing this song in and play it, and so, people are professionals and we work it out.
A couple of years ago, you did the remake on Picking Up the Pieces. What was the inspiration to do the remake on that?
Well, that was on the In the Country record,
mm-hmm.
and we had gotten down to the end of our recording. And I'm trying to think who brought the idea up. If it was David Stone, I can't remember. Or maybe it was Val, and somebody said, why don't we just do another, rendition of Picking Up the Pieces?
There's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing. So let's begin. We're bringing you back down home where the folks are happy, sitting, picking, and a grinning. Casually, you and me will pick up the pieces. Somebody yell out at me, country music and company kinda makes it on a Sunday afternoon. Well, picnic lunches yesterday should still have a place in your heart today. You think it over, 'cause we'll all be going home so soon. Oh, there's just a little bit of magic in the country music we're singing. So let's begin. We're bringing you back down home where the folks are happy, sitting, picking, and a grinning. Casually, you and me will pick up the pieces. Well, if I had the time to stay, would you sit yourself down to play country music, singing songs that we both knew? Lord, I pray that the day will come when both of us will sit down and strum on our guitars. And you see, I really am a lot like you. Oh, there's just a...
And I thought, yeah, this is great, because we had tried we tried a George Jones song, and we just couldn't really get away from how the song, She Thinks I Still Care, we just couldn't get away from that, the feel of that record. It's like Lonesome Town that we did. We got a whole different, whole different presentation and feel. And so we wanted to record one more song. And I remember going out and writing the charts with this guy and coming back. That was take one. That was one take of that whole song, man. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Players,
incredible.
I mean, the players are so good. I love Bukovic's, how he started the song, rather than we just it just put it in a whole new feel, man. It was so cool.
All right. You've talked about the documentary a couple of times. Give us an update on it, man. I know you've been extremely devoted to it. What can you share about it at this point?
Well, boy, every year it's like, okay, we're going to get it done. And every year there's about 5 or 6 more interviews that we got to do. I mean, we had to wait almost a year for Stephen and Neil and I to get together. We got together twice. Actually, Stephen and I once via Zoom, and then Stephen and Neil and I all got together at Stephen's house a while back with Cameron Crowe, who is doing a lot of the narration. I was Cameron's first interview. I don't know if you knew that or not.
I think he was like 15 years old, wasn't he?
He was just a kid. That was before he was Cameron Crowe. And I hadn't heard from Cameron in maybe 40 years.
Wow.
And on social media, I saw this thing come up, and it was Cameron Crowe. And I'm thinking, no, this is not Cameron Crowe. But I went behind the scenes and I tracked him down, and I said, listen, I'm coming out to California to do a show with Timothy B. And if this is really you, I want to invite you to the show. He wrote me right back, said, it's me, I'll be there. And we hooked up after 40 years, man. I hadn't seen him and then he got involved with us, I mean, it was pretty much on a very light schedule at first, but now he's really taken an active part. He was out there for the Stephen and Neil interview that we did for the documentary, and it was just a lot of fun. Like I said, it got to a certain point and COVID hit and everything slowed down. And then we started getting interviews that we didn't think we would ever get. Clive Davis and David Geffen. And I mean, people that I didn't think we would ever get. Regardless of the musicians that I've played with and all that, that's just going to be a part of it. We're hoping right now. I just wrote a song for the ending where the credits and all will go. My Denny Klein, who was David Stone's partner, he's been insisting, you got to write a song. You got to write a song. You got to write. Well, I've written 2 songs now that ended up on this thing. Another one that a person had donated some money to, and they said if Richie will write a song. He'll donate this money. He said, I don't want the song for me though. I want it for a fan that comes, and she's a quadriplegic. She's in a little chair, and I wrote this song called She Was Looking for Me, because I remember when her parents would bring her into the auditorium, and she would just look around, like she was looking for me. And so that song's on there. And then I wrote this song called It's Your Grace, which we're finishing up recording even right now. Putting some more Dan Dugmore's on this, and we got a choir thing that we're going to be doing on it, because it has a little bit of that Memphis walking in Memphis kind of thing, that I want to get a choir on, and it's really wrapping up. I mean, there's a lot of editing that's being done right now. There's more to it than people really know, but it's coming. It should be coming out early next year. That's what I'm hoping for. I mean, I hope I'm around to see it.
Me too, man. So you deserve, my friend, to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a solo artist, and it is my wish that after this documentary comes out and people understand, the right people, understand that Richie Furay has been and is the real deal. And it is my wish and prayers and everything that this happens for you, because you definitely deserve it. And I think it'll happen, my friend.
Well, Rick, thank you. I'm very humbled by that. I was so glad to be able to do that reunion with Stephen and Neil about 12 years ago, because I think I had to prove to myself that, I didn't just ride into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Buffalo Springfield on their coattails, but I really offered, I had a lot to offer. And I think during that time that we did that reunion about 12 years ago, I really think it satisfied me that, yeah, man, my contribution was there too, so.
Well, I want to thank you for your passion and your incredible talent all these years. And I appreciate you doing the show with me today, my friend. This has been a very special time to be with you. And hopefully in the next not too far off future, I'll be coming up with my wife, maybe kids, to Denver to see my cousin up there. And if we do, I definitely want to come over and give you a big hug.
Let's do that, man. And congratulations to you on your 100th show, man. I mean, this is awesome that I could even be a part of it. So congratulations to you, Rick.
Thank you, Richie. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And well, let's keep this party going, man.
Yeah, man.
Get the documentary done and let me help spread the word. So,
stay in touch, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Love you, man. Take care.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.